your perception of how the world functions and should continue to function. And each person has a separate one. I mean, you could be raised side by side with a sibling and you guys could have two completely separate worldviews just based off of one instance, one situation. That's it. Like that could literally change it, right? And so no one likes that because our worldviews are built so heavily and so deeply in our psyche and how we make decisions and how we look at people, how we interact with people, how we interact with things, how we make, all of that. It's so deep that when you have to start realizing that there is room for personal growth, and this is part of the reason why talking with someone that really loves personal growth is like so refreshing. Right? Like it feels good. Yeah. And the reason that is because that person has allowed themselves to evolve continually, right? When you stop letting yourself evolve continually, you start feeling like this, like I call it like a crystallization. Like, I don't know if you've ever left a pot like on the stove for a long time and the heat just keeps going. Yes. Right. And it just kind of like crystallizes stuff and you're like, this is nasty. I don't want to do it now. Like it's too late. Let me just throw out the pot, right? And so that's what I like to see with people that don't work on personal growth. They're not constantly adding water to that pot. And so as things happen and things change and the heat is life, right? The stuff, the only thing you can count on is change in light, right? That if you don't keep adding water, which is new ideas and new ways of looking at things and dealing with things and dealing with your own internal biases and trauma and everything, right? If you're not constantly going to do that, it's gonna get gross in there. And no one likes to put their hands in a gross, nasty pot. I don't care who you are. That's nasty. You're like, totally. I'm going to soak it for a while. And then I'll leave it for a few days. Right. And that's what happens is when you are so set in your ways, you've got to then add a bunch of personal growth and then just let it percolate for a while, which doesn't feel good. Right. You get all pruny and nasty. And then you've got to actually start cleaning it and scrubbing it. And then you can start using it again. Right. And when I say it, I mean your brain, I mean your emotional intelligence, right? And if you don't do that, it makes it even harder and harder and harder and harder, and it just keeps snowballing, right? And so that's why when you're in your 20s and 30s, especially when you're in your 20s, because you're not actually mentally fully like developed until you're like 24, 25, it's so easy to keep adding new ideas. And that's why we teach children, right? We send them to school and educate them, because it's so easy for that brain to soak up new information because it's still working, right? And it's still working on growing and adding synapses and all of that, right? Once you start hitting like 28, your brain starts dying. Like that's the fact, right? Everything stops growing, and so it slowly is decaying. And if you're not constantly adding new ideas purposefully, it's going to be even harder. It's like when people say, I went to college, I got my bachelor's, and then I spent, 3 years in the workforce and I had a really, really hard time going back for my master's. Well, because your brain was no longer used to being used